Everyone on the island of Sodor knows that wherever Thomas goes, Annie and Clarabel go too. The three friends are inseparable. They love running up and down the branch line, singing songs to each other, and wouldn't trade it for anything. On the main line, change was afoot. Sir Topham Hatt was testing a new stopping service. Rather than changing trains, passengers wishing to travel on the branch lines were designated certain coaches. At the junction, the coaches were uncoupled and added to the branch line train. The passengers enjoyed the convenience. Thomas, meanwhile, enjoyed the attention.
It's only natural Sir Topham Hatt would give me more responsibility. Given how well I run the branch line, I'm surprised he didn't do it sooner.
You do know he's running the same service on Edward's branch, don't you?
Thomas wasn't listening. He coupled his coaches to Annie and Clarabel and hurried away.
Do come along, we shan't be late. Do come along, we shan't be late.
We're coming along.
The other coaches remembered Thomas from his days as station pilot. Soon they were telling him about their journeys along the main line. Annie and Clarabel wanted to sing more songs, but Thomas was too enthralled in the other coaches to notice. Later, Thomas shunted the coaches to the carriage shed, then stopped for a rest. As he slept, Annie and Clarabel conversed.
Why don't we have any stories to tell?
We do, only they're all about Thomas. Going fishing,
Losing our guard.
racing Bertie. Wonderful stories, mind you, but
We were merely along for the ride.
it would be nice to go on the main line again. Who knows what we see nowadays?
At that moment, Thomas awoke.
So I'm not good enough anymore, is that it? What nonsense! You're not fit for the main line nowadays.
Annie meant to tell Clarabel they weren't fit for the main line anymore, but Thomas's words infuriated her.
We're quite fit, thank you. Besides, it would be nice to go with the other engines. Perhaps they won't ignore us.
Thomas was shocked.
Well, fine. I'll just take other coaches.
And that's how it was. The next day, Annie and Clarabel were added to James's stopping service, and Thomas used two of the old coaches. They said nothing to each other as they left the junction. At first, things went well. Thomas felt pleased.
Do come along, we shan't be late. Do come along, we shan't...
We won't be late if you focus on the line and stop that wretched singing.
The second coach muttered in agreement. Thomas was speechless. As they approached Terence's field, Thomas whistled gaily to the tractor. Not long after, Bertie rolled past and Thomas whistled again.
For goodness sake, how many whistle boards are there on this branch line?
I was only saying hello.
No time for those sort of pleasantries on the main line, not when there's a timetable to keep to.
Thomas's heart sank. This wasn't what he'd expected at all. He was miserable for the rest of the day. He didn't want to admit it, but he missed Annie and Clarabel dreadfully. At the end of the day, Thomas was at the junction with his last train. He was having a drink and feeling quite down when Henry buzzed in.
Well, Thomas, you wanted more responsibility? Be a responsible engine and take these coaches back.
Thomas looked up. At the rear of Henry's train were Annie and Clarabel.
Silly things haven't stopped singing all day. Do come along or you'll be late. I've been on time all day. Thank you.
Thomas couldn't help but laugh. At once, he coupled the old coaches to Henry's train and took Annie and Clarabel away. Henry huffed off indignantly.
I'm sorry, you two. I shouldn't have been so rude. My day has been...
Dreadful. Ours too. We missed you dearly. Those mainline engines treated us awfully. Some adventure that was.
disgraceful! They should be so lucky to have you on their trains.
The three friends stopped. Then they laughed. It was good to be together again. Thomas still takes other coaches along his branch line, but Annie and Clarabel stick close behind him. They still bicker, as good friends do from time to time. From that day on, however, there was no talk of leaving for the main line. Annie and Clarabel concluded that the only story they wanted to tell was that of their peaceful little branch line.
He's a really useful engine, you know. All the other engines, they'll tell you so. He huffs and puffs and whistles, rushing to and fro. He's the really useful engine we adore. He's a really useful engine, you know. 'Cause the Fat Controller, he told him so. Now he's got a branch line to call his very own. He's the really useful engine we adore. He's the one. He's the one. He's the really useful engine that we adore. He's the one. He's the number one. Thomas the Tank Engine. Little blue train, he's on